Hello, everyone. Juxtaposition here. Today's show will be entitled The Perfect Alibi. And of course, I'm going to use alibi as a metaphor for concealment, or as we call it, the Matrix, or what Aaron Valente told us. It's all a game, it's a thought experiment. We're in the Matrix. Those were the last words spoken at 10 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, October 7th, 2019, to her mother in New York State, where it would have been about 1 a.m. in the morning. And what it means is that we live in a meta-universe construct that's a theatrical stage where all peoples are actors upon the stage. There are directors, producers, there are stage managers, there are lighting experts, there are crisis actors professionally paid who are injected into the production. That is the meta universe, false reality. And we have an entire industry dedicated to that called Hollywood or Hollyweird. We also in India have Bollywood. We have the Tavistock Institute in central London. We have the BBC. We have international cackling cacophony of chaos worldwide. William Randolph Hearst knew that. He was a newspaper magnate. He brought you the Spanish-American War with the USS Maine sinking mysteriously in the port of Havana, Cuba, which the United States Marines and Navy completely controlled that port facility, and yet 266 sailors lost their life in the To Hell with Spain and Remember the Maine Psychops false flag attack. Anyway, I want to quote from my favorite television fake police show, Columbo, where there were 68 episodes produced for Columbo, which featured Peter Falk, a Jewish man of Hungarian and Polish Jewish roots, born in the Bronx, New York, and he portrayed himself as an Italian both on screen and off screen. He was a hell of an actor. He was a hell of a liar. Peter Falk. Anyway, Peter Falk plays Columbo, who originally the two Jewish creators of Columbo, which would be Richard Levinson and William Link, they're Jewish boys from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. We're going to come back to Philadelphia and Jewish people, operatives, in a moment. Anyway, they wanted Bing Crosby to play Columbo. But Bing Crosby typed up a very polite, gracious rejection letter to the boys because he wanted to spend more time golfing and felt that a weekly television show, even if it was constructed on it as part of a magical wheel where it's every third week, would be too tedious and time consuming. So Bing Crosby passed. Enter Peter Falk's opportunity to play an Italian detective who couldn't utter the word Jesus ever, but convince everyone that he was a tenacious, dogged, underestimated Italian inspector, detective, lieutenant of the Robbery Homicide Division of the Los Angeles Municipal Police Department. He had me convinced. You should know the executive producer of Columbo was Jewish, Philip Saltzman. He produced a boatload of television shows for Hollywood. He was the executive producer, Philip Saltzman. Anyway, of the 68 episodes of Columbo, there were only 3 episodes where the Lieutenant Columbo character lost his temper and blatantly accused the killer of murdering the victim. There were only 3 times when that happened, where he did it in an angry way. He certainly implied it in all of the Columbos. He implied that he suspected his suspect. The 3 episodes were the pilot episode, which was entitled Prescription Murder. That was released, believe it or not, on February 20th, 1968. Okay? That's 3 weeks before the My Lai massacre by United States Army troops under Army Intelligence Black Ops Operation Phoenix, where they bayoneted and shot with M16 rifles 504 innocent civilians, mostly women, pregnant women, old women, and some old men. And it was comical that the United States Army could never get an accurate count. So I'm going with the 504, which is the number of tombstones which now reside in the hamlets plural, that is known as My Lai. Prescription Murder aired, starring Gene Barry as the psychiatrist, medical doctor psychiatrist, which is a common theme in Columbo's. The psychologist or psychologist appear in many episodes of Columbo. The Gene Barry character murders his wife because he wants to get out of a suffocating marriage, and presumably wants to marry this young Hollywood actress who hasn't made the big time yet. But it's unclear whether he's really sincere about that. He uses her as his alibi. He uses this young, very younger woman who he's seen as his patient. In other words, he's poaching his patient, his psychiatric patient, who's stressed out as a young actress in Hollywood, which that's a hidden message to all of us, that if you go down the pathway in Hollywood and you make a deal with the devil, you're going to be under continuous stress until you pass away. It's a lifetime contract. Anyway, there's a number of social engineering messages in Prescription Murder portrayed by Gene Barry, the murderer, who, by the way, that's not his real name. He's a Jewish man whose name is Eugene Kloss from New York City. And he cut his teeth in Greenwich Village as a young actor on stage. Changed his name from Eugene Kloss to Gene Barry. I didn't know that, but I do now. Anyway, so in that episode, Columbo loses his cool with the Gene Barry psychiatrist character. Then we have Leonard Nimoy, who's a Jewish man from Boston, Massachusetts, but who grew up in an Irish Catholic neighborhood section of Boston. But he spent time at the Pasadena Playhouse, was discovered and injected into Star Trek, becoming Mr. Spock. And you know, Leonard Nimoy lived on Stone Canyon Road, adjacent to the Bel Air spa facility. There's a beauty and spa facility on Stone Canyon Road, and the home on the same side of the street, just north of this Beverly Hills spa, is the gated complex where Leonard Nimoy resided until his death. And I don't know about you, but I wouldn't want to live next door to a facility where strangers are coming in and out constantly on the driveway next door to my driveway. It's like virtually every time that Leonard Nimoy would pull out of his gate, you know, he would be looking at traffic coming. He'd have to watch and look twice that no one pulled out from the Bel Air spa. Because they did a lot of business. You know, it's very expensive zip code there. Yeah, boy. Anyway, that was an episode that was entitled A Stitch in Crime, where Leonard Nimoy portrays himself as Dr. Barry Mayfield, who's a cardiovascular surgeon, who wants to murder his partner, Dr. Edmund Heidemann, who's a Jewish doctor. And they're working on a project together, and Dr. Barry Mayfield is in a hurry for adoption of this experimental research that they're doing, whereas the older Dr. Heidemann is not. So Barry Mayfield operates on Edmund Heidemann's heart and installs temporary sutures instead of the more robust permanent sutures, which are a different color and texture. Anyway, Columbo has to get to the bottom of that, and he loses his temper and picks up a paperweight on Dr. Mayfield's desk and slams it down to tell the doctor what he believed. When the doctor, Leonard Nimoy character, said, "You don't really believe all that ridiculous theories that you just said. And Columbo slammed down the paperweight and said, I'll tell you what I believe. I believe you killed Dr. Heidemann, that you killed your nurse, and that you're trying to kill Dr. Heidemann, and you better hope nothing happens to him, because then we're going to have an autopsy, aren't we? And we're going to have to find out if he had permanent sutures or temporary sutures in his heart. So you better take extra good care of Dr. Heidemann, which was daring the killer into a trap. Either way, it would appear that the Leonard Nimoy, Dr. Barry Mayfield, was in a kill box. And the third episode of Columbo, where Columbo lost his cool, was with Robert Conrad, who was playing Milo Janus, who was a fraudulent larceny criminal who pitched fitness centers throughout California. Yeah, this episode is entitled An Exercise in Fatality, where the the Milo Janus franchisor kills one of his franchisee, Gene Stafford, when Gene Stafford, who was an accountant for the aeronautics and space industry, was on to the larceny, embezzlement, maneuvering of the Milo Janus franchise. And that episode starred Robert Conrad, who I believe has some Jewish roots in his background. You should know that the Robert Conrad character has a lot in common with the Charlie Manson character, and the Jeffrey Bezos, founder of Amazon, is a carbon copy of the Robert Conrad character. Robert Conrad was born as Robert Falk. He was born Conrad Robert Falk. How do you like that? His real name is Conrad Robert Falk. And his father is Leonard Henry Falk, was only 17 years old at the time of... See, it's so hard to say what their names are, right? Because Conrad Robert Falk, I've been programmed to think of him as Robert Conrad. But you see what they do? They move the names around. So his real name is Conrad Robert Falk, spelled exactly like Peter Falk, who's a Jewish boy from the Bronx. And now we have Conrad Robert Falk, whose mother, Alice, was only 15 years old when she had him. Well, that's the same situation as Charlie Miles Maddox, who people think his name is Manson when it's Maddox. His unmarried mother was 15 when she had Charlie Maddox. And we have the exact situation with Conrad Robert Falk, that you know as Robert Conrad. Oh, God. His mother's name was Hartman. Hazel Jacqueline Hartman, who was the daughter of Conrad and Hazel Hartman. So we got Conrads coming on the mom's side. And it certainly looks like the mother was Jewish, okay? Because her mother, Robert Conrad, or Conrad Robert Falk's mother, eventually became publicity director of Mercury Records, and she changed her name to Jackie Smith. She's married twice, and she also was married to a Chicago radio personality called Eddie Hubbard in 1948. Eddie Hubbard and Jackie Smith reportedly also had a child together, born in 1949. Robert Conrad was born in 1935. Jeffrey Bezos' mother was, I believe, 17 years old when she had him in Santa Fe, New Mexico. So that's premature, except that Jeffrey Bezos' grandfather was a big shot at the Department of the Atomic Energy Commission. So they found a Cuban husband for Jeffrey Bezos' father, who I think her name might have been Jackie as well. There's a lot of Jackies in these stories. So I'm going to call Robert Conrad, or kind of what his real name was, is Conrad Robert Falk. I'm going to call him Jewish. So we have three Jewish murderers portrayed in Columbo. Gene Barry, not his real name, Leonard Nimoy, his real name, and Robert Conrad, not his real name. And this is where Columbo, a Jewish man portrayed as an Italian, loses his cool. And I want to quote the penultimate moment in An Exercise in Fatality, where Columbo has already lost his temper with Robert Conrad's character, Milo Janus. But the coup de grace, he delivers the coup de grace, at the final scene of that episode, An Exercise in Fatality, where he reveals to Milo Janus that he discovered the editing of the audio tapes, that all the telephone calls into the Milo Janus franchise are recorded, and that he believes that Milo Janus took scissors and cut and removed a caption of the victim, Gene Stafford's voice, and then took a light out in his two-line phone system at his Beverly Hills house, and then concocted a fake telephone call. And Columbo turns to Milo Janus and says, Do you see how easy it is to fool people? You see how easy it is to fool people? And then he concludes with the shoes and the shoelaces being tied by someone else, not by the victim themselves. And then he says, it was Janus's own sworn testimony that Gene had already changed into his gym clothes during this concocted phony telephone conversation, and it's after the murder is what's going to be prove your undoing. You tried to contrive a perfect alibi, sir, Columbo chided him, and it's your perfect alibi that's going to hang you. Well, that's breaking the alibi. It was only you, and you alone, who swore that Gene Stafford changed into his gym clothes. You should also know that the alibi was that for Miles Janus, he invited some friends over, including his hot secretary, to see a horror movie porn film. And you should also know that the Milo Janus headquarters is in Chatsworth Spa. Chatsworth is the center of pornography next door to Canoga Park. It's part of Canoga Park. Chatsworth, it's where the Spawn Ranch is, where they had the fake Manson family portrayed. It's porn. It's a porn center. Ronald Reagan appeared in many films there, as did Bonanza. As did Barnaby Jones and Cannon. They did television episodes at that porn set as well. The George Spawn Ranch was used for porn films, right? You know that, right? I don't think, a lot of porn films, but mostly Westerns and television police shows. But porn too. Definitely porn. Porn's all over the San Fernando Valley. It's the most profitable and most important thing for the Hollywood CIA to do is porn. Porn is number one. I don't care what anybody tells you. It's not Terminator. It's not Terminator 2. It's not Rambo. It's not Rocky. It's porn. All right, so Columbo losing his cool is a very rare thing. It rarely happens. But it did happen in a scene with Milo Janus at the hospital following Ruth Stafford, the ex-wife of Gene Stafford's overdose, drinking in pills, a deadly combination. It's as angry as you'll ever see him. And then one final social message that was in this episode of An Exercise in Fatality was that Milo Janus drove a Rolls Royce that was colored maroon, a maroon-colored Rolls Royce, which is in your face, mocking you about the massacre, the NATO murder and massacre of Dr. Victor Oda, his wife, his two sons, and his secretary receptionist. in his Frank Lloyd Wright house, located at 999 North Rodeo Gulch Road in Soquel, Santa Cruz County. It's a military hit. It involved a manifesto. It involved the burning, arson, felony arson fire of the Frank Lloyd house, the tossing of the 5 bodies into the swimming pool, the murdering of the kitty cat and tossing the kitty cat in the pool. So they got 6 dead bodies in the swimming pool. It involved taking the Rolls Royce and a Lincoln Continental car and blockading the driveway so that the fire department could not fight that fire in a timely manner. And then they ended up wanting to use the swimming pool to put the fire out, whereupon they discovered 5 dead human beings and a dead kitty cat. And there's Columbo episode featuring the exact replica. For all I know, it's the exact same car that Dr. Victor Oda, an optometrist, was driving when he was murdered to death. The Rolls Royce that blockaded the Santa Cruz County Fire Department. Because I do believe this is an unincorporated part of the county. Alright, so anyway, it's a form of concealment. Now, we have this in virtually every area of the murders going on in Hollywood. And my next video is going to be on, I've had several requests for this, and I've wanting to put it off, but I'm going to do it, which is Chuck Barris, not his real name. And, well, it is his real name, but it's legally a little different. And his partner, Burt Sugarman. I'm going to do a video on the Gong Show producer Chuck Barris and the Newlywoods producer of and Midnight Express, Burt Sugarman, who partnered with Chuck Barris on the Newlywed Show and the Dating Game. You will be absolutely amazed when you realize where all these people come from. Philadelphia, the Bronx, Manhattan, New York, Chicago, and the ages of the people. All right, please stay tuned. Take care. Talk to you later.